What is up, everyone? Welcome back to another video today. And in this video, I'm going to be discussing my brand new collection that I'm starting, my East Asia collection. So, brand new collection that I'm starting within my just overall collection. So, I guess officially a collection within a collection. But just like what I do with my retro models, I put a big focus on that. I'm going to put a big focus on East Asia models as we move into 2026. So why exactly am I starting a East Asia collection, since I don't have any sort of personal ties to that part of the world in terms of family and all that? But mainly why I'm doing this is because I have quite a bit of interest in this region, just generally speaking. I've always looked at just what this part of the world has to offer, and it's pretty fascinating with all the different carriers there and just the different variations in the aircraft types that they have over there compared to what frequently gets covered on my channel in the US and occasionally in other parts of North America. So that's also kind of why I'm doing that. And the other reason as well is that I've been influenced by a few friends. Some of them have their own connections to that part of the world. And just from them, I've learned a lot of very fascinating things about certain airlines like Korean Air, Philippine Airlines, Japan Airlines, just to name a few. And then also from other content creators I'm recently seeing that are starting up various projects within that part of the world, like Stars 10P Aviation. He made a Japanese random model airport, and I know he has plans to start a full Japanese airport in the future, which will be very exciting. So not exactly my intent to sort of copy off that, but to sort of take my own spin at it and get creative with it. So how exactly I'm going to use these models for videos as I build up this fleet over time will primarily be in the form of airport updates. So the main series that I'm going to use for this will be random model airports, because that's obviously the series that I do, just one-offs of different airports, primarily in the US up to this point. But with the East Asia collection building up, I will have various airports done in that part of the world. Now, how exactly I'm going to schedule that is to be determined, but occasionally I'll do like 1 or 2 East Asia airports every once in a while. But as I build my collection, they'll become a little more frequent and perhaps may even be split up into its own series depending on how far I get with the collection within a certain amount of time. And then the other thing, too, is that I also do kind of want to collect like retro models from this part of the world as well. So for retro reviews, that will be a big boost, as there will be new aircraft that I get to review in that series. And there will actually be one here coming up in the coming weeks for what I already have for my limited East Asia collection at this time. So now I want to turn all of your attention to this Google Doc that I made, which I've put together this checklist of the models that I need. Now, I must stress this point that this is not a complete list. This is very much an incomplete list, so this is not going to go over every single aircraft type that I need, but this does hit a majority, if not all, of the notable airlines, the more mainstream ones that you typically find at a lot of the major airports in this part of the world. So I have this split up into 3 categories for each different region, with a primary focus with Japan and South Korea, and then other parts of East Asia, I've sort of put them together into just a single category there. But I've split up each of the models into wide body, narrow body, and regional aircraft categories. So as you'll note here for Japan, it's a pretty comprehensive list, mostly of ANA and Japan Airlines, the different aircraft types they have there. But you'll note Air Do is also up here. There's a 763. I have not found one in the standard livery. I don't even know if one has been made in the standard livery, but there are a couple specials. So I know in this part of the world that special liveries are a very common thing. And what I'm going to try to do with that is I will only get the regular livery unless I cannot find it at any point in time. And I don't know, like if I can't guarantee that one in the standard livery is going to come out, then I'll just settle on a special livery. And if a standard livery does come out or I come across one later, then certainly I'll get that, and then that'll add some variety to my collection. But obviously going down the list, there's Air Japan in here. They got 787-8s, And then ANA takes up a good chunk of this, which I've already been able to check off a couple things from this part of the world, like the ANA 333. I got the Phoenix release from last year at Airliners International in Atlanta. But you'll see that they have, 767s, different 777s in here as well. And there's also plenty of 763s that don't have winglets. So I've kind of separated it into a category where I could get one without winglets and then one with winglets. It just really depends, but that will certainly be settled as I move further with this project. And then ANA, of course, has a pretty healthy fleet of Dreamliners. And then over to Japan Airlines, they've got some A350s, 76s, 777s, and then 787s, which I've seen at least the 333. And then Zip Air down here at the bottom, which I already have. I got the NG release, which is a very nice model. And then moving down to the narrow bodies, where it's a little more diverse, at least for the number of airlines. But you see Airdo at the top again, 737-700. I've been told that this is a very rare model, so that will be an interesting hunt to find it. And then ANA, once again, you got some Airbus A320s, A320neo, A321, A321neo, and then the 738s. I did see some 737-700s, but I know that they retired those recently. And they have Japan Airlines and Japan Transocean in here. Jetstar Japan, I have the A321neo checked off. Go check out that unboxing. And of course, they've got some A320s as well, which are a little more common since with the A321neos, or the LRs as they're technically called, they only have 3 of them right now. Peach Aviation is here as well. They have some A321neos I've seen, so I'll have to add that to the checklist. I'll actually just do that right now because that will make my life a lot easier as I proceed with this. Trying to talk and type is not exactly an ideal situation, but we will make it work. So there we go. Got that added in there as well. You have Skymark in there, and then you have Starflyer and various other airlines appearing. Move down to the regional. Amakusa Airlines, I think is how you say that. They have some ATR 42s. There's ANA Wings with the Dash AQ400. I know JC Wings has announced one, and it's still yet to arrive. I will get that once that does get sent out to retailers. And you have Fuji Dream Airlines, which is what I saw with Stars 10P's Random Model Airport update. It was Matsumoto. They get a couple of those, and they've got very colorful planes. I like to call them the Japanese Braniff now, just because it's the same concept as what Braniff had way back in the day. Hokkaido Air System, Ibex Airlines, CRJ 700. This is another one of these rare models that I've been told about, but I imagine a lot of these are also rare in their own regard. Then you have J-Air, which is like the regional subsidiary of Japan Airlines. Japan Air Commuter, they have some ATRs. I saw Oriental Air Bridge on Flight Radar as well, so I decided to put that in there, but I don't know if anyone's made a model of that. Ryukyu Air Commuter -AQ400, that's also a notable one there. And then that takes us into South Korea, which is another interesting part of this project for me. Air Premia up here at the top of 789, which I've wanted to add for a long time anyway. They have a handful of U.S. destinations like New York, Los Angeles, Honolulu, to name a few. Then Asiana Airlines, it's a big presence here with A330, A350, A380, 777-200ER, just for the wide bodies. And then Jin Air, which I've come to learn that this is a very difficult to find airline because only 4 models have been made. All of them are by Phoenix. So I don't know why we haven't gotten more of them. Perhaps NG could make a couple. I did not see a 739 on the list at all. So someone needs to do that, and hopefully that gets done soon. And of course, Korean Air, the big component of this part of the world, with all their wide bodies, the A330-300, A350, 748, 777s, 787s. They've got them all. I've seen at least a handful of these. I've seen the 748. I saw the new livery in Atlanta. I still need to get that model. I've seen the 333ERs. The non-ERs are used on more domestic stuff. They use them within East Asia primarily. And then the Dreamliners, I've seen the Dash 9. I saw it in Dallas, but I don't think I've seen the Dash 10 before. And then T-Way, the A330-300, they actually fly them to Vancouver, which is kind of interesting. So that'll be a fun model to get for perhaps a Vancouver project if I want to expand more into Canada, which I've always wanted to do as well. And then for narrow bodies, they've actually got quite the plethora of them here. Aero K, which I don't know much about for this airline, but they've got some A320s. I don't know if anyone's made a model of this airline either. Air Busan, some Airbus A320 family aircraft. I know NG did an A321neo recently. Then Air Seoul, that one is another difficult airline to find for models. And then there's Asiana Airlines. I just have the A321 and A321neo listed on here. Eastar Jet, they've got some 737s, the 800 and the MAX 8. And then Korean Air, they have like the A220, A321neo, and then some 737s in there. Have the MAX 8 and the 900 listed, at least for now. Then you have Jeju Air, Jin Air, and then T-Way down here. And then, of course, China, I don't have a checklist for this just yet, but this will require me to dive into this part of the world, which I've kind of wanted to explore in some capacity. It's just that with the current state of my wallet, that wouldn't really allow me to. But for this project, that will have to be explored at some point. And I know some Chinese airlines, they obviously fly to, Japan and Korea and all that, so that will definitely be airlines that I will have to collect at some point. And then as for other regions, I just have them listed here in this section. So, Air Asia, Cathay Pacific, Cebu Pacific, all that fun stuff. And the models that are in bold, these are wide bodies, and then the italicized listings are of the regional aircraft. So ATR, CRJs. I even have a Daily Air Twin Otter. Hopefully 3D Design Deck gets to doing that, and maybe they'll explore different parts of the world as they grow. That would be fun to add. But yeah, all the big airlines that you know pretty well. China Airlines is in here. I've got a couple of those that I want to get. Hong Kong Express, Hong Kong Airlines, Junyao Air, Mandarin Airlines. There's me at Mongolian. So yeah, Mongolia is technically part of East Asia. So they've got different types there with the 737, 76, and 789 flying out of Ulaanbaatar. Philippine Airlines. This is a big airline that I've always wanted to collect. I've got a soft spot for them. But they have some like the A320s, A321s, the Neos. There's a Dash 8 Q400. I did see one on Squatchies recently, but I think somebody got that, unfortunately. At least for me, anyway. But at some point, we'll see if that gets remade, because that does have some different titles than the ones they currently have. And, of course, the 777-300ER. I should have the A350 listed here as well. And they're going to get the A350-1000 soon, so that will be another component. Tiger Air Taiwan, Uni Air, Sunlight Air, and then Starlux. And that's kind of where the list is at. Again, this is not a complete list. I should stress that. So there's obviously a lot more to this than what I have listed here. But this sort of gives you a rundown as to just how many planes I need to get for this particular project. And then just another thing I want to do as well is look at flight radar and just kind of see, what's happening here. As I record this, it is early morning, so won't be too many flights out of here. I'll just go ahead and start looking at different airports. So like, Manila here, obviously for Philippine Airlines, this is their home base. But they get a pretty decent variety of aircraft here. And, with these big airports, they'll have wide bodies from different parts of the world. So if I wanted to do these big airports, it would require me to dive into those elements. But I'll just go ahead and start up here at the top, just kind of scrolling to the start of the previous day. But you see right here, there's a Chinese aircraft, Air China MAX 8. So like I said, with China being just across the way from here, and with how many airlines and aircraft types they've got over there, I'll have to start collecting those. Not saying it's a bad thing by any means, because I know I've given NG a lot of I've given them a lot of criticism for releasing that, but it is obviously important since that is their home market and there is a pretty big customer base they've got over there. So there is a lot of sense into why they're releasing so much of that, but obviously collectors want more. But that's a story for another time. Then you have Cebu Pacific here, obviously, another big airline in the Philippines. They have, A320 Neos, A321 Neos, A330 Neos. They've got those. Scoot from Singapore, so I'll probably cover that country as well in this project, even though from what I've read, it's technically not part of East Asia, but I'll certainly get to that just because that's also very popular within the model aircraft landscape. You have Royal Air Philippines, pretty interesting airline. I don't know too much about them, but certainly will be excited to learn more. You have Oman Air that flies to Manila from Muscat, and then, A321s for Philippine Airlines. That was coming in from Hanoi, Vietnam. 333 from Tokyo, Haneda. That's pretty cool. And then for the U.S., with Philippine Airlines, they fly to, we got San Francisco, Los Angeles. I think they have Seattle as well, just trying to remember off the top of my head. And then New York, John F. Kennedy, they fly into with the 350s, but everywhere else is the 777-300. Air Canada from Vancouver. That's on the 79 right now. But yeah, you can just see most of the schedule is pretty much either Philippine Airlines or Cebu Pacific. Well, you do have some other stuff still scattered across the board. But a pretty nice airport. Definitely want to do different airports, like, for example, this one right here. I don't know how to pronounce the name, so I'm not going to try right now. But as I do this, I'll get better at pronouncing all the city names. That's also kind of why I want to do it, to get better at pronouncing all these different names for all the different cities that are in this part of the world. But here's the main Taipei International Airport. Obviously a lot of stuff here. Oh, look at that. China Airlines, 333 on the Ontario service right now. They flew the Boeing livery there. So that is awesome. I'd love to get that model. But you see for the domestic stuff, there's that's not the right one. There's A321neo they've got a couple of those in their fleet. Eva Air, big component here as well. You'll see plenty of these. They fly to Seattle, 7810. That's awesome. And then, of course, Emirates, you'll see them at all the big airports. So A380s is going to be a requirement for those big airports. I'll just hop up to, let's go into Busan right now. I just want to highlight some of the aircraft over here. But yeah, you'll see, there's a whole bunch of Air Busan. There's the Jin Air I was talking about. The 739, I've got some non-wingleted and non-ER ones. Korean Air has a couple of those as well, I've seen. And then, there's the A220-300s, Jeju Air here as well. They've got one in the older livery still, which is surprising. And then E-Star Jet Max 8. And then there's Japan. Beautiful country. Would love to visit this place one day, especially go see Mount Fuji, because that mountain is just beautiful. I've had a friend that went there recently and told me just how awesome that place is. So definitely want to visit Japan as a whole one day. And then as I move out a little further right into the Pacific, there's obviously Hawaii here, and Honolulu, they get like Philippine A330s, and then Japan Airlines sends a 763 over there. Guam, which is not too far from here, which I'm having a little difficulty finding. There we go. It's kind of hard to see on this map, but there's Guam. This is the airport that kind of got me into doing this, just because I've wanted to do Guam for such a long time. You'll see here, China Southern Max 8 flew in there recently, and that's pretty cool. But they get stuff like Asia Pacific 757 freighters. United flies a 738 out of here as well. They're specially configured for Guam flights. And then United does the 333 from Honolulu. And then there's Philippine Airlines with the A321 from Manila. Occasionally they'll send the Neo as well, but primarily it's the regular 321s. Korean Air, they're sending the 7810 now. I've always seen the 333 on those, the non-ERs. There's Japan Airlines, and then T-Way with the 738. So that's kind of the primary component here. And then Jin Air also flies here with a 738. So that's just a little snippet of that. And then, there's all the other countries. There's Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand. Other different parts of the world I want to explore as part of this project. And then obviously up into Mongolia and all that. Will definitely be a fun project to explore. So very excited about doing this East Asia collection, as I will be excited to learn just new things, just different parts of the world, and see what they have to offer in terms of the airlines and aircraft types, and obviously to get more models, because I want to grow my collection, even though I have no space or money right now. That's always the dilemma that you have as a collector. But they are good problems to have, I should stress that. They are good problems to have, and you just have to navigate them one step at a time. So that will do it for this introductory video on my East Asia collection. I'm always welcome to receive any tips or advice on any airports that I'm doing, any models that I want to get. Definitely open to that, so please provide me with any help, assistance, etc. I'll definitely take it, and especially with pronunciation of different city names. Like if I'm getting something wrong, please let me know so that I can correct it for future reference. And of course, for the models, just where to find them and how to get a hold of certain aircraft, because like I said, there are some airlines that are pretty rare, like specific Airdo aircraft, and then Jin Air was one I mentioned. I couldn't really find much on that for models, but some of them are easy to find and you just have to do some digging, but other ones you could look everywhere and you're just not going to find any of them. So yeah, this will be fun. Hope you guys are excited for this project. I certainly am. And as we move forward, the official launch of this project has already happened, but As we move into 2026, I'm aiming for around Q2 is when I'll officially start doing the random model airports with East Asia airports as I grow my collection. So that would be spring into early summer is kind of what I'm targeting right now, but this will change as I get a good idea of where my collection is at by that point. Like if I have a larger fleet before then it'll likely be earlier, or if I need more time to get more models, then I'll either wait until then or just push it back further. All just depends on what happens there. And then long term, I also want to do a dedicated East Asia airport. How exactly I want to do that, I don't know yet. That is all to be determined as we move forward. With that being said, thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next video.